Dearest nerds and gig lovers, I'm Kirky, your gig mistress. This episode, oh my word, of Dusty Gannon of Vision Video. Hi Dusty, how are you doing?
Hi, doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for giving me the time. And obviously, I'm a time traveler at the moment because I am so many hours ahead. So thank you
Yeah,
for
no, it's
joining
no
in.
worries. It's been a nice day here in Georgia. It's only 3:40 in the afternoon, so yeah, it's been kind of a calm. We had a bit of a thunderstorm this morning, but now it's like beautiful outside. So my fiance and I are just kind of hanging out and taking it easy today, which is nice.
Yes. Well, you're going to need to before what you've got coming up because, like,
Yes.
I've just had a look. I've had a look at the tour list, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
We're sunny here in the UK for once. We actually had some sunshine today,
Oh,
so
nice.
I was sat in the garden with my hood up and my sunglasses on, and trying not to get anything
Yeah.
tan wise.
Right.
Yeah, don't want that. So you are coming back to the UK, and I screamed when I saw the post because you've just been to the UK with the
Yeah.
comedians, and
Yeah.
I missed it. I missed the
Oh,
Newcastle show, and I
it
was
was
like,
so good.
damn.
Yeah.
I got a message from somebody I put on your Instagram, and I was like, oh my God, I missed it. And then I got a message from a lovely lady who basically said, it was amazing. You have to see them live. So I was
Ah.
like, right, we're going to have to do it. So I've said to Neff, the lady who replied to us, if she
Mhm.
manages to make it to one of the shows that I'm going to, then we'll have to meet up. And she was
Killer.
like, you've got to see it. You've got to see it. So
Well, thank you.
you've got 19 chances to see Vision Video in the UK.
Yeah, and
19 chances.
Ireland
And
as
Ireland,
well.
yes. Yes, Dublin, Ireland, Working Man's Club. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love coming to the UK and touring there for a variety of reasons. I think the most glaringly obvious one is that like all of my favorite music comes from the UK. Um, both in the world of like post-punk and goth rock and all of that, but like also in different manifestations. Like one of my favorite bands that isn't in the realm of like post-punk music is the Scottish band Frightened Rabbit. It's like sad bastard folk music with like a little bit of post-punk in the underneath the fingernails. But like there's just something about the sentiment of the UK that just like really resonates with me. And I know it's just like a romanticization of things because when you're not living in a place, you like often go, oh, this is wonderful and this is so cool. But there are like many facets of it that I really enjoy because, especially being an American right now, there's so much like tension and just feels like not great here right now because of very obvious things that are happening politically. So whenever I'm abroad, it's very nice. But like touring, say for example, in the continental European area, can be very difficult because like I speak pretty decent German, but like outside of Germany, like the language barrier is pretty intense, and like driving around and parking can be really difficult, and it's just like everything's a little bit harder. Whereas the UK is like quite incredibly easy to tour, which I like. It just makes the stress level come down. And also there's no significant language barrier unless you're like maybe in like Wales or something. I
Or
don't know, but
Newcastle.
maybe but again, we were just talking before we started the interview. I have an ear for sort of like Anglo, like UK based accents. So and I think it's just a byproduct of listening to so much music and media from that area of the world. But yeah, and but I also I know it's like not particularly the most couth thing in the world, but I really love Weatherspoons, which is so horrible, and I know it's bad, but like it's I just love the fact that like any single town that has more than like 10 people has a Weatherspoons. And when you're on tour, like one of the most difficult things that you face every day is like, okay, we have maybe 2 hours to kill before the venue before they get in and sound check and all that. So okay, yeah, maybe there's something really cool to see that's like right off the bat. It's very easy to find. And usually I'll try to go like see something cool and like culturally significant in a town. But oftentimes it's kind of hard to get to those places or whatever, or it's cost money or. So that's just nice, like having a really cheap pint and some like very mediocre food that's like fine and comforting, but like nobody really cares like that you're sitting there for like hours on end, just kind of like wasting time. And I don't know. I mean, but that like I'm mostly joking about that, but like I also just love pub culture in general in the UK. I think it's really so. Are you familiar with this concept of the third place? Have you ever heard that? So it's a sociological term that refers to places that, so the first place is like your home. The second place is like where you work and where you're productive or whatever. And the third place is referred to as this sort of very cheap, if not free place that people congregate and commune. And in America, we're actually like that third place is being totally removed. Like, I mean, especially under Trump, like they don't want anything that's provided by the government that can be commodified. So like we don't have places like pubs where it's like we have bars and stuff, but they're all really expensive here. You know, like get a pint is going to cost you like essentially like £6 or £7 per pint here in most bars, which is wild. Whereas, you know, in England and in the UK, you can go to a pub and you can have a pint and just nurse that for an hour, or maybe you have 2 or 3, but like you're not spending a huge amount of money to have a community experience. And I like that. I like that people get together and really talk in the UK and like have a sense of community over that kind of environment. That's like a little like it's quaint and it's like nice and comforting and inviting, and it gives you that opportunity to like meet people and get to know people. So anyway, I just really value that, and I love that experience. And I know that there's like a lot of things that are not great about the UK, and you know, like the lad culture and all that trash is just stupid, and like, you know, the people getting into fights over football games and all sorts of dumb shit like that. But you know, it's still like, to me, it hasn't lost its novelty yet.
I didn't realize how social we are. This was one of the things that actually dawned on me when I was just, like I said before, I've just been to a festival in Sheffield called Resistance Festival. And my friend who came with me was from Sweden. And she was like, you are so social. You are so chatty. And funny enough, I was going to take her to Wetherspoons and we didn't get a chance because Wetherspoons is the hub. It's like, it's where you go for a cheap beer, a dirty burger, a pizza if they've got one on the menu, like something a bit lukewarm. And I can say that because they're not going to have a go at me. Bit lukewarm, microwave meal, absolutely on the
it's
nose.
Nothing fancy, you know, and it's and I don't expect it to be. I kind of like. I mean, I'm a person of dichotomy in a lot of ways. Like I love a really like fancy, well prepared meal that's like all the stops, you know, like everything is just firing on all cylinders. But I also love some garbage. You know, like I like a trash, like I know it sucks and I'm here for it anyway. And that's Wetherspoons, because it's like
Wetherspoons.
It's £10 for like a meal and a pint. Are you kidding me? That does not exist here. And actually, the first time I ever went to England, so one of my best friends is from Georgia, and this is actually a different friend from what I was telling you about earlier. But one of my best friends lives in Bristol, and she's actually, I think she has her UK citizenship now, but she married a Bristolian man. Hi, Andrew and Lori, if you see this. And they live in Bristol. And when I was in the army, I went to visit her because I got stationed in Germany, and I would go to the UK a lot. Like I would visit them regularly because I was like, you know, this is one of my best friends, and Andrew became a really close friend as well. But anyway, like back in the good old days of 2011 and 12, like that's when they first brought me to a Wetherspoons in Bristol, and they were like, "Oh, you're gonna love this. This is like it's terrible, but you're gonna love it." And I mean, just walking in there, and I was like, at that point, a pint was like £2. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me, man. This is wild. Like, so anyway, if you're coming to one of our shows and you want to meet me beforehand, just find the nearest Wetherspoons and I'll probably be there, sadly. That or like a record store or like anything. I'm a big Warhammer person, and that's English. And so like there's a couple places you can probably find me very easily.
Go to Warhammer. Go to the Mile Castle in Newcastle, probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This
I
is
love it.
so Scarlett, my fiance, came with us 2 years ago on tour when we came to the UK, and we were in Nottingham, and I was like, oh, there's this thing called Warhammer World. I want to take you because like I was like, this is the nerdiest shit you will ever see in your life, but it's awesome. I was like, I swear you'll love it. It's super cool. And even if you're not like into the thing, because it's a game and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, you'll just appreciate the artistry of the models that are painted at this place. And I'd always wanted to go there. So I took her and we walked in. She was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And that was like a moment where I was like, I'm going to marry this woman. But yeah, like this, we're going to go back, and we actually scheduled a day off in Nottingham just to go like do that and like be dorks, which is fun. So
It's so cool though. It is so cool. We'll come back to Warhammer.
yeah, for sure.
I used to play too.
Yes. Wonderful.
Yes, a long, long time ago. But it's this thing with the UK. I mean, touring the UK, you've got, like I said, you've got a lot of dates and you've got a lot of venues. You play in the Clooney in Newcastle.
Mhm.
I had to look at some of the other venues, see if I could recognize them. And you like the Clooney. I think, did you play the
Yeah,
Clooney
we played
before?
there. We opened for the March Violets there a
Yes.
couple years ago. Yeah, that was great.
It's a great venue. Ivory Black's great venue. Voodoo Rooms
Mhm.
in Edinburgh. Ivory Black's
Yeah.
Glasgow. Yes. Yes, in Manchester. You've just got some really cool venue. The Warehouse in Leeds. Oh my God, what a venue.
Yeah, we'll be opening for the Violets there again.
Yeah.
And that's where they're from. So it's going to be, a really proper night. Like I think they actually, one of their biggest shows they ever played, or like one of their most iconic shows, was at the Warehouse in Leeds in 1984, I believe. It's like sort of a legendary show. So I'm incredibly excited to do that again. That'll be really fun.
You're going to be living your best goth life. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes. Do you think, because obviously touring in the UK can be quite difficult as well, you're quite an aggressive touring band. You tour a lot. And you've put on a long tour here. Not everybody does that. 4 dates, 5 dates off the go.
Yeah.
Is this something you feel, because the Modern Horror tour is about the Modern Horror album, is this something you feel is necessary, or is this a part of the band? Is this what the vision video is, or do you think it's necessary, or both?
I think it's both in a way. I mean, some of it, I think the essence of it is financial primarily, because we're not like a huge band, like we have a large social media presence, but we're like, like a lot of that doesn't necessarily translate to people actually listening to the music, because the music is a really hard thing to get people to actually go consume. It's really easy to jump on social media and make like fun videos or like informative videos, but like to actually get people to take the time out to go listen to a song is a little different. So in essence, like we do this full time. All the musicians in the band essentially are full-time performers in the band, and that being the three of us, Ryan, Angelica, and I. And so we have to kind of like, I do all the administrative. I pretty much do all the like back end work for the band. I kind of burst out tasks to them here and there whenever I need help. But it's a small business, and you have to think of it that way, which sucks because it's like, oh, this is the not fun part of this. And any day you take off on a tour, especially abroad, is really, really, really expensive and really detrimental to the sort of sustainability and viability, financially speaking, of a tour. Because it's all about keeping, like, everybody gets paid at the end and everybody does okay, but we have to keep this like balance so that we can continue to keep the machinery moving forward, in essence. But I mean, aside from that, I think I also do quite enjoy like the momentum of just not necessarily like an onslaught. I mean, you have to have days off and you have to rest. Like my voice gets scorched from just talking to people, let alone singing. Because if you can't tell, I like to talk a lot. There's like a momentum that you build where you get into this like 5 or 6 straight runs, 5 or 6 shows straight. And it feels like almost like if you like, I liken it to lifting weights, which is such a like jar-headed thing to liken it to, but it's if you haven't lifted a weight in a long time and you kind of pick it back up and you start exercising, the next day you're going to be so sore. But if you do it every day, your body kind of adjusts to that, and it's sort of prepared for it, and you don't feel as much agony. And that's kind of how I liken it to touring. Is if you don't really stop and you don't take a lot of time off, you don't really feel how like how physically exhausting it is until the very end, and then it's hilarious because every time we finish, it's like, oh, and then you're just so sore and you're so worn out, and it usually takes about a kind of a week to like readjust to normalcy. But yeah, I mean, I every time we go on tour, I just try to get as much possible out of the experience, because in a meta way too, it's like, how many tours will we have ever? Like, I want to keep doing this, but is it something that, maybe in 3 years I'll be like, okay, I think I'm done or whatever. Like, so I know I don't ever want to feel like I've lost the sense of preciousness of like what we are getting to do, because the rarity of being a full-time musician is so precious. I mean, so even at the level we're at, which is like pretty marginal. I mean, we do well, but we're not like some huge band, and that's not the point anyway. But anyway, I just don't ever want to like feel like I've lost the sense of appreciation for that, because then it seems like then you're just sort of like phoning it in.
I love that. I love that because I think so much of the industry relies on passion. And yes, it's tough because, as I've said on a few of my podcasts, it's the ticket sales, it's the merch, it's how the money's made. And if you don't have the pre-advance ticket sales, you're going to make a loss on a gig. That can be detrimental, particularly if you're flying in from America. Yes. Then, there's the flights in. It used to be back in the day when I was early in promotions, quite a lot of the time the promoters would pay for flights. That's not the case anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's rare. Like, you have to be coming to a massive festival or something. Like, every now and then, even in the States here, like, we get pretty substantial offers to play some bigger festivals and stuff like that. That's been sort of the theme of the last year. It's been like some really good offers to play festivals and whatnot, but none of them, not one single one, has been like, your flights are covered. I'm like, no. I didn't expect it to be anymore. You see the writing on the wall, and it's just definitely like there's sort of a coalescing and a sort of a retraction inwards with the music industry right now that I see, where you're losing a lot of the smaller venues. And like even middle size bands or whatever that like that kind of, we're at the very low end of that, I would consider us, but we're getting put in these bigger packages of shows where it's like mini festivals, and it's just, everything is just coming inwards because the viability financially for these promoters and booking agents and all these things, like they have to make it work now. And that sucks because like I live in Athens, Georgia, and like I grew up around here. I moved back here after I left the military, and because I went to college here, and like university.
University.
I don't want to be too like cheeky about it, but so we have this amazing music scene here, right? Like it's so historically cool, like B-52s, REM, Pylon, like all these really iconic musicians have come from here. And even like now there's like 250 bands in current operation approximately. And anyway, I moved back here because we have like really cool little venues, but like even here, it's starting to like, some of them have disappeared since like COVID and all that. Like it's just sort of this retraction. Like the really cool venue that I used to work at, I used to bartend at, is now like a corporate venue owned by one of the largest music corporations for live music in the country, in the world, AEG. And it's like, I mean, it's still cool, but it's like the soul of it's a little diminished. So anyway, it's just, I think it's just important, like in general, to appreciate live music as a musician, because you can't take it for granted. Like, it won't be here if we don't support it and we don't patronize it, you know? So I try to make it, and that's like a big part of, in my opinion, like why I try to make Vision Video shows so engaging and fun, even though I'm probably going to bum you out a little bit with a lot of the things that I have to say, but I want it to be a positive experience. And I want people that like what we do to walk away and go, that wasn't just a show. That was like a whole on experience. And I feel like I got value out of that. That's like the whole thing of it, because yeah, that's what it should be. You know, it should be something that you walk away with, not just like, oh, cool, I got hammered and it was a good time. There's nothing wrong with that either, but you know.
I get it, because that's what you want. And you know, you can go, again, Newcastle and Leeds, Newcastle have a huge historic sort of scene, particularly metal in Newcastle.
Right.
And we have this whole kind of thing of, still now you can go to a little show and the little venues like Trillions in Newcastle, like the Clooney, like that hold on. In fact, the Clooney's a bigger venue, but it's got that vibe. And I think that is where I'm going to lead on to my next bit for you, because this tour, your album is quite political.
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a hair.
Just a tiny bit outspoken, and no, I like that.
Whatever made you think that?
Just a little bit. I might have had a little look on Instagram as well.
Right.
I like that. I think we are missing that. I think as a whole, the music industry, and I want to ask if you think the same. Do you think that, obviously, being as a post-punk band and the album that you've got, and how surprisingly soft for a political album, mind, it's got a very mellow, kind of very haunting feel, and it's truly, truly great album. I genuinely love it. It makes me feel like something that I would have wanted to have found. And again, we said this before, there's a gap for me in music. Yeah. And this feels like it fills something that I've been missing for quite a while.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
Do you feel that because of the political shit show that's going on, do you feel that music and creativity gets better in times like this? For all we're losing venues, for all it's harder, do you think it makes it better?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, when you look at, like, I'm a historian at heart. Like, my degree is in religious history, but it's history in general. And like, I look at everything in the world through a kind of a historical perspective to kind of inform my opinions about what's happening now, because nothing is new. I mean, we have new technology and new things happen in the world, but it's all sort of the same thing over and over and over again, because people don't really change that much. So, looking back at, my favorite music genre, which is sort of nebulously post-punk, but, within that goth and all the other things, when you look at the time of when that music came out and what people were saying with that music about themselves and the world that they were interacting with, I mean, it's just looking at the UK, for example, like listening to bands like The Cure, The Chameleons, The Sound, Joy Division. These were all, for almost entirely, guys and girls that were from either really small, like far off places, or like factory towns like Manchester or like North London or whatever, where it was very droll and drab. And we all know that it rains constantly and it's like very dreary. But there was also like Thatcherism and like sort of this reinvigoration of traditional values that had been kind of lost post World War II because the country had been decimated, and you have all these people coming back in, and it's again, we're hearing the same sort of rhetoric now of like, oh, we need to bring back the family unit, traditional values, and we need to focus on, England first or America first, and all this dumb shit. And I think that these people were making music that really mirrored how they felt about, like I said, themselves, but also their interaction with the world. And I've heard this, like, this opinion from a lot of people that are like, oh, well, music doesn't necessarily like when times are hard, people want to listen to like nice, easy stuff. And I don't think that's true at all. I think most like average, everyday people maybe, but people that are, just a little different or a little like analytical and intelligent to some extent, at least, want to process their feelings through art, and that's like how we learn about ourselves. That's how we understand ourselves, is art of all kinds, whether it's music or films or physical like paintings or whatever. I think that's a mirror for us to look into. And yeah, I mean, it sucks that it's like we have to go through bad times to have better stuff, I guess. But I mean, I think that for me, it's like, I a lot of music for me is getting these like really intensely terrible experiences that I've been through in my life, between the military and the fire department, being a paramedic, getting that out of my head and putting it into something that feels constructive and creative, instead of letting that energy just destroy myself, because I've been there. I've been, like, I don't really have an addictive personality, but I like got real heavy into drinking at one point because I was just self-medicating and I was just trying to feel anything but that malaise that was like really intrinsically deep down inside of me. And that's not good. That's not a good thing to be in. And that's something that shouldn't be romanticized or like, like, oh, the tortured artist is bullshit. Like, don't be a tortured artist. Get this shit out, get it out and then face it. So yeah, I don't know. I think with the record Modern Horror, that's a really interesting thing to me now, because I started really like, we wrote that record over technically about almost 2 years period of time. It started out as just some singles. We like kind of rehashed In My Side, which is like our most popular song. And I wanted to put like a slick coat of paint on that because, we had like we recorded Modern Horror with Ben Allen, who's like a Grammy Award winning producer in Atlanta, this great studio he owns called Maze Studios. And so we're in this like world-class studio with a world-class producer. And our first and second record were done by Tom Ashton of the March Violets. And I love the production on those because it's kind of lower fi. It feels, I told Tom when we started recording those, I was like, I want those records to sound like the 80s.
And they do.
But and it does, right? So, but we had this like amazing equipment, all this cool stuff. And I was like, let's like redo some stuff. And I didn't really have like a sense of, we were just actually recording singles. We weren't really focused on making a full on record. But the other angle of that was that going to Ben Allen, he kind of did that as like a passion project. Like we would never have been able to afford the normal studio rate with him. So he just kind of like helped us out a lot, but it was still expensive. So we had to kind of record it in chunks. So we did this like first volley of songs, and then we kind of came back to the studio. We did a couple more, but then like we did the second half all at once. So about 7 songs. And by that time, so to just give you perspective and like texture to the record, like, I got to this place where October 7th happened in Israel. And then this intense, awful bombing campaign started. And I'm very outspoken about this because at first I wasn't. I was like, I don't know enough. I have a degree in religion. I've been to Palestine. I've been to Jerusalem. I've been to Ramallah. I've been to Tel Aviv. And I still didn't feel like I understood it enough to make commentary. But people were like, well, how do you feel about this? And I was just like, I need to like do some research. I need to like truly understand this. So I read a bunch of books from differing perspectives, and ultimately looking at that situation and having been in a counterinsurgency war, I looked at what was happening and I was like, this isn't a war, man. They're trying to slaughter these people. They are just straight up trying to slaughter these people, because you don't it's just the fundamental of counterinsurgency warfare. You don't destroy the population. You don't destroy the infrastructure. You have to be careful. You have to engage with the civilian population and infrastructure because you want them to be amicable to the fact that you're trying to go after this small group of people, but they're not doing that, and they haven't. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So the record started out, the heart and soul of the record started out with my perceptions of American involvement and funding that and arming that genocide. And I'm like, this is completely insane. Like, this is everything that is contrary to what both political parties in America supposedly believe in. But they wrap it under this auspices of like, oh, well, if you're critical of the Israeli government, you're just anti-Semitic. I'm like, well, that's hilarious because I have Jewish ancestry. So whatever. It's like, that is such a cop-out thing. But there was so much frustration and just watching this happen. And then like going and like meeting people that I respect even. And then they're like, oh, no, this is just a war. This isn't a genocide. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to tell, like, I'm not an expert, but I know what the hell I'm talking about in this world, regards to warfare, counterinsurgency, and bombing, and like stuff like that. I know this stuff. So anyway, that's all just to say, like, that a lot of that really intense anger in that record started with that. And then, the political campaign season started last year. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was super lukewarm about Kamala Harris and Waltz. I mean, I was just like, these are people that are a better of two terrible options, essentially. But clearly Trump is like the worst possible scenario. But I didn't think for a second that he was going to get reelected until midway through the campaign. And I was like, oh no, this is going to get really bad. And there's a variety of reasons that I could talk your ear off about all day, but that's when, like, we had already, the record was basically done. And then it came out like right in the fever pitch of that time. And it was like, this record is going to mean so much more to even myself and to other people though now. And yeah, it's because there's a lot of messaging against Christian nationalism in the record, which is like, I'm a very laissez-faire person when it comes to religion. I think religion is actually a really wonderful thing. And it can be very beautiful. And I've read the Quran, I've read the Torah, I've read the Bible, I've read all of these, like, I've read Chinese religious texts, firsthand stuff. And there's so much beauty in it. But what really bothers me is when a group like the Heritage Foundation, which is the group behind Trump and his cabinet, and Project 2025, I'm sure you've heard that, like those people are trying to destroy the government and make it fail and basically collapse inwards, because it was kind of doing that anyway. Like, we're in so much debt and this country has just lost its way, but they're trying to artificially collapse it so that they can install like a Christian Taliban, essentially. And that to me is baffling. So there's a lot of messaging in it that sort of points at that without even knowing that was basically going to happen, or thinking that was the likely scenario. Because I think, if you want to be a follower of Christ or Buddha or Muhammad or whatever, go for it. But don't ever tell anybody that they have to follow your way of life. That's so simple. It's like golden rule shit that we learned as kids.
Let people be. Yeah.
It's just
nice.
Upsetting. Yeah.
Get
it's
on.
like, just respect, have dignity and respect for other people, even if you don't understand them and you don't agree with them. At least, like, it's like, you can do whatever you're doing over there as long as you're not harming anybody. But, I think that it's taken this really nefarious, ugly face because, they're weaponizing ignorance on a massive scale. They're creating this boogeyman out of like trans people and queer people in general, and like a boogeyman out of undocumented immigrants. And when in reality, undocumented immigrants make this country function. They like literally pick and grow the food here. They like do all the jobs that people don't want to pay a proper wage to people, and these people are willing to do it. And that money gets often taxed and put back into the American economy because they do live here while they're working. And so anyway, it's just really frustrating to watch and listen to this rhetoric, this really vicious, vitriolic rhetoric, and people have bought it. And it's just because a lot of it is because the other side of the aisle, the liberal left, which is they're not even leftists. They're like center right at best, like Biden and Obama. These guys did very Republican shit. Like they would be considered Republicans 20 years ago. And nobody has given the American people any sense of real value for a very long time. Like we have, ever since the end of World War II, it's just been like an erosion of public good from the government and just this increase of military spending. And, having been somebody that's been a part of an empire war, in Afghanistan, and I think there was justification for that war, but it became this monster. It became this business, this egregious, all-consuming thing that operated in spite of itself. And I hear the same rhetoric that I heard when I was a kid and I joined the army. And I didn't really join to go fight or do any of that stuff, but I hear this stuff and I'm like, oh, that sounds very similar. And they're trying to get us to do some more dumb forever war shit, and it's just really, it's like, I think if anything that I want to do with music now, it's kind of twofold. It's like, I want to get those experiences out that I need to get out, and those emotions, and get that out in a different way, in a healthy way. But then also I want to warn people. It's like, look, I've seen this stuff, and like, you can't imagine, like, unless you've been through something really truly awful, like a shooting or a stabbing, like, you just can't imagine how bad, like, death on a large scale can be. And it really, it destroys people's literal lives, people killed in war. But the people that survive don't ever live in a semblance of normalcy necessarily ever again. You live with it forever. And, I just want to, it's like, there's a really great movie that came out last year called Civil War by Alex Garland. The British guy did 28 Days Later. And there's this really great a scene where the protagonist, she's this war correspondent, and they're in the middle of an American Civil War. And she's talking to another correspondent, and she's like, it's a quiet moment. They're like, it's like nighttime, and they're like kind of bedded down, camping out on this big journey. And she tells this other war correspondent, she's like, every time I went to a war and I took pictures and I told the story, I felt like I was always sending it back to America and saying, don't do this. And that every time I see that movie, I get chills when she says that, because I'm like, that's it. That's the sentiment. It's like, that is the thing. It's like, there are things worth fighting for. And I'm not like a total pacifist, I guess, but it has to be the absolute last option. And we are a society in the Western world in general, not just America, but in the West, we are a society as a conglomerate that just looks at the rest of the world and blames the problems of the rest of the world on on other people, because we have created an industry of warfare, especially in America, that is so intense and so expensive, and it just perpetuates itself. The only way that they make more money is if it gets used. So of course they're going to find a use. It's like that allegory. I'm going to mess this up, but like, if every problem looks like a nail, the only solution is the hammer. It's that, it's like, if everything is something we can solve through military might and strength and dominance, then that will be the solution, and they will use that for every possible scenario. So yeah, anyway, that's a very long-winded way of me saying that. Like,
it's right though, and I heard this in your album, and there was some points of the album that almost shamed me. I am very political, and I have to be very careful because I have a little boy. So my main role in my life is to keep certain things from him, but educate him in the right way. Right. So I don't have the news on in the house. He doesn't get to watch it. He watches a version of it at school that they allow him to, but I don't put it on in the house. There's certain things that we sit and talk about in a way that I feel are appropriate to talk about with him.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing it too, and you mentioned it. There's this whole glorification of war, and almost this glorification of the soldier. Now, I come from a very long-standing military family. Right. There is absolutely no way I have sat him down and I've said, you know, it may seem cool and there may be this underlying thing, but this is not right. Right. Yeah. This is why, and this is what is going on, and this is what is happening. And he's very aware. So we got, when we obviously, to not bring in obviously too much politics, but bring in the Ukraine, we had people obviously in the Northeast who had, you know, come as refugees. Yeah. My little boy had a friend who was from the Ukraine. Oh, wow. So to sit him down and explain why they were there and what had happened and what was going off and why he should embrace the difference in language and culture. It's funny because I'm watching things and I'm sitting watching it, processing, how do I relay this back to a young child? How do I explain it? That's so tough. In a way that is true and right, and that brings a child up in a way that they see it as wrong, but to keep it in a way that is not truly terrifying, that is going to have him thinking, oh my God, because some of it is truly terrifying. I'm a grown woman. And I see it and I go, and I am nowhere near as educated or as understanding or, you know, as you. I am very ignorant in the world of it, but I look at it and I know it's wrong and I don't like it and I don't like how it feels. And I don't want my child to be part of that. I think there's certain things that we don't need to have a complex understanding to look at and go, whatever that is not in the natural order of things. You know what I mean? Like there's just something about it that is so ugly. And that's why they go to such lengths to not show you the reality of it in sort of the mainstream news media. You know, they want you to see the big explosions and the sort of sterile aspect of it. Cinematic version of it, yes. They don't want you to see the children that have been killed and the devastation left behind of the people that are not killed but wounded horribly, and they don't want you to see the soldier who's back home, who is just utterly incapable of relating to the world because he or she has just seen too much or just experienced too much, and they just cannot connect. They don't want that version portrayed. But yeah, it's a tough thing, but I think that's really admirable that you do that and you sort of like meter it and try to give just enough understanding and exposure to, it's not just like consuming your son, but like it's enough to like go, hey, this is what this is. And this is why we don't condone this and why this shouldn't happen, you know? And that's super important. Biggest form of activism I believe I can take now out of everything is to raise the next generation to understand why not and why it's better. Because like you say, history repeats itself and there isn't a great lot of change. If I raise my child to understand that people are trans, that there are different variations of chromosomes, that people's brains do develop differently in gender, that science is real, that history happened and this is why it happened. And if we don't repeat it, we won't end up in the same loop. What better form of activism? I feel quite helpless. If I am brutally honest, I feel quite helpless politically. Yeah. But this is where it comes into it as well. You look at some of the albums from the 80s, like the Westworld album by Theatre of Hate, which is touring again. Good. Yeah, so and it's touring again in the UK. It's going to be touring full. Oh my God. take some of the stuff from the 80s, like some of the Sisters of Mercy industrial stuff, which goes into obviously like, the sort of darker political and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All these kind of albums that came out, trying to warn of the same stuff, talk about the same stuff. When I picked up modern horror, this was it really struck us. And some of it, like I said, did make us feel a bit almost guilty. I do feel a bit ignorant. Obviously, I do feel I am fairly educated. I went to university and things like that, but I'm an artist, and I study it from an artist point of view. I always did art. I looked at paintings and drawings and albums and album arts and lyrics and poetry and World War II poetry and things like that all tie in. And the art side of it is driven, particularly very UK based, by this. It's funny, you said something a few minutes ago that you didn't think Trump was going to get in. A year ago today, I was sat in a bar and I turned out to somebody and went, I'll not get in. That was my exact attitude. That'll not happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it stuck with us. And I saw them again not so long ago. And I was like, yeah, how wrong was that? Come on,
I mean, I think a lot of people just became so dispossessed by the system that they didn't vote at all. A lot of people erroneously believe that Trump won because there was overwhelming support for him. That's not the case at all. Trump won because people in America don't feel connected to any sense that the other side of this binary system, which is terrible anyway to have two choices, but nobody feels that the other side of the aisle has any real legitimate concern for making a difference and changing things, because it has been very much so in support of the status quo and in this sort of ultra unfettered capitalist machinery that is money above all, profit above all, and we're a consumer society, and that's changing very rapidly as we become diminished in the world stage. But it's a scary time for anybody that doesn't agree with what's happening. I think it's a scary time for a lot of people. Even if you did vote for somebody like Trump, I think a lot of them are even starting to go, "Ooh, we didn't ask for this. This is not what we wanted." But I think that eventually, the incompetence of these types of people is going to really show it. I mean, it already has showed itself. They've tanked the American economy in less than half a year. It's like amazing how quickly this house of cards is kind of collapsing in on itself. They can't even get like the FBI director to show up to meetings to like give a proposed budget for the next year, which is like just the most fundamental thing. It's like, hey, here's the budget. Like they can't even do basic things, which is wild to me. This
is all stuff we don't get to generally hear. It doesn't tend to happen over here. We don't get to know about
Americans don't either, though. That's the crazy thing. It's like, because everybody gets their sort of prepackaged opinion from mass media, whether you're left or right wing, whatever. You sort of either listen to CNN or Fox News or whatever, and both of them have a very like direct narrative. And I try to find just fact-based reporting. I don't care. I don't want to hear about like exposition on it. I just want to know the facts, and I will inform myself based on my understanding of the world and through history. But I think ultimately that we're in a very divergent time in not just American history, but in world history. And I think we're either going to, because like in essence, not to go like too far down the rabbit hole of like history and politics, but like we're watching the end of globalism. Like we're watching our mass connection kind of fall apart in a way. And that's not entirely a bad thing. There's a lot of bad things about it, but I think the divergent choice that we're about to make is like, do we do what happens when these connections do fall apart, which is play into authoritarianism and fascism and thugs who are bullies to anywhere else other than their country, but they also are bullies internally, or do we look at how to progressively and actually change the way that we've been doing things that has proven to not work. We have to do something different now. How do we fix the things moving forward? How do we move to a more equitable, sustainable, reasonable future that provides for an actual future? Because we're destroying the world, and the more we push to war, we will get to a place where there is no turning back, and that mutually assured destruction of like nuclear holocaust can occur. And that's, it's like, I think there just needs to be more honesty within politics and within people's interactions with the people that lead them, because I don't think that most of anybody in the Western world has had real representation through their democracy in a very long time.
Feels very stuck. I'm a big Star Trek fan, right? And this sounds really daft me bringing this up, but you might get where I'm going with it. When they mention stuff about World War III in Star Trek, and they mention about how the fall of man and the fall of currency and the fall of this, and I'm sat there and I'm like, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. I read like Philip K. Dick, Isaac Asimov, stuff like that. And I'm watching stuff happening and I'm like, it all just, sci-fi is supposedly stuff that shouldn't happen. It's fiction, but it's not. You read Philip K. Dick has a short story, and in it is a major company called Autofac, which is a consumerism ideal. And it is a huge plant, begins with an A, and it delivers to people's doors on drones and stuff like that. And I'm watching it happening and I'm like, oh my God. And it's even a standing joke in my house that every time a parcel comes, it's a parcel from Autofact. It's not, know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Kind of one of my favorite things that I have, say I'm enjoying it, it's probably not very nice for you, but I love how you take people on the internet. It sounds really daft, but because it's been very obvious to me, even, I've never met you before, but having this conversation of how intellectual you are and how educated you are. Some of the things that you do online have me in stitches. Some of the responses you put back to people where you school them so bad, they have no comeback, or they come back with something that's worse. And it's just a non-stop barrage, and you never fail to educate somebody. It is so enlightening, and I look at it and think sometimes I wish I could be that just on the ball.
It's not good for you. It's not good for you, though. I'll tell you that much.
No,
I get riled up, and Scarlett has to keep me centered. But I have a kind of a principle about that, because I don't want to become one of these just insufferably terminally online people that's just going for the throat. And I don't do it all at every opportunity, because I wouldn't have a moment in the day, because there's so many idiots that just find me.
And so much of it's bots, by the way, because I deal with technology.
Absolutely. And you can usually kind of recognize, and if I feel like it's just a straight up bot, I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll disengage. But if I can tell that it's an actual person that's just a heinous, just bastard, what I always do is, I'm never going to stoke the fire unless I absolutely know factually and can prove what I'm saying. But it's really, it's quite easy, because especially, a lot of the content I've been making recently, just because it's where my head is at, is people don't think that goth and post-punk music is at all political, and I'm like, that is such trash. If you read any book about any of this stuff, and I'm literally looking at my bookshelf. There are 3 books that I'm looking at. Somewhere Lace is a great book. Doesn't really go into the politics, but Rip It Up and Start Again, great book that goes into the absolute political nature of what was happening in music, with post-punk music, not specific to goth, but post-punk. And then, there's others, but it's funny to me, because people are like, oh, it's just vibes, it's just spooky stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not. Because when you have an entire subculture that has sort of spawned around the nucleus of rock and roll, which is inherently people of color built rock and roll.
Yes.
But then after that, within sort of the goth milieu of like the Batcave in London and Slimelight and all these other places that sort of were the progenitors of that scene before it was even called goth, and it was just this thing that people were doing. That was a very queer, very weird, very anti-Thatcher, very aggressively anti-establishment world. And I've been trying to tell people, like, if you, I'm not ever going to sit here and say we all need to be anarcho-socialists who believe in a free market but have regulations on how that, like all this crazy stuff that I might believe in, that's never going to happen because it's the real world, and what I want and what I think should happen will probably never happen. But regardless, I'm not going to tell you that all goths need to believe in this or believe in that, but I will tell you what you cannot believe and expect to be welcomed in the scene. Because if you are homophobic, transphobic, if you do believe in the auspices of conservatism, which are inherently racist, that are inherently homophobic and xenophobic, you're not welcome in these spaces, because you're sort of saying, I don't care about the spirit of this. I just want the aesthetic. I want the edge. I don't want to actually abide by the principles, which there aren't any. There aren't any, like, here's the documentation of being a goth. Let's open the Great Book of Goth. On page 12, you'll find the rules and regulations. No, but
shall wear new rocks.
Right, exactly. You got to have one pair. I have one, and I will never wear them again on a stage because they're too heavy. It's ridiculous. But no, like it's a matter of, so any subculture, any culture in general has a presiding nucleus of what it is. And that is the core. And then there's sort of the like peripheral. And that's where everybody gets online and argues, well, this band's not goth. This band's not, this band is. Vision Video's not goth. And then there's other people, oh, yeah, they are. And it's just like, that's silly, but that's actually good. That's actually good because it makes people engaged to the subculture that they're participating in. And it's like just discourse. And that's as much as it can be insufferable on the internet. It's good discourse. But when you get to a subculture that you are not really a part of, that you don't understand inherently, and you expect to be welcome to that, and you have somebody say, if you don't at least abide by these simple principles of what this is, and if those people are allowed to actually come in, the water is muddied and it becomes meaningless, and then it just does become a fashion, fad, and it becomes a trope and a caricature of itself,
Yes.
because then I am, as much as I am a post-punk person, I'm also a punk rock person heavily.
Yes, you are.
And I mean, Dead Kennedys, sang it right, Nazi punks fuck off. Like, that's as clear as I can say it. It's like, this is so coded into the core of this stuff that, I mean, if you allow these people to have an ability to feel comfortable in your safe space, that is no longer a safe space. That is a Nazi club.
Can't do it. This is one thing. My husband is not of any of our genres, right?
Yeah.
He is just absolutely not. He's as pop as you can possibly get, and he really doesn't get how liberal I am. He's like, you are so welcoming and so open, and nothing phases you. And I'm like, but that's my ethos, I go happily to the drag scene. I will club anywhere. I accept anybody. Now, one of the things I want to get to, because this was probably the highlight of the internet for me, there was a little argument between you and, I can't remember their username, and it produced a t-shirt. You know where I'm going with this, don't you?
Oh, yeah,
it produced the best t-shirt that I have never got my hands on, and I will one day get one. I want to talk about the goth gay shit t-shirt.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I just posted some sort of like promotional video, just sort of like displaying the essence of what Vision Video does, it was just like live footage of us playing somewhere, and it's kind of overdubbed with our music and all this stuff. But that every now and then, specifically on Instagram and Facebook, I don't know why they like to show our videos to people because it gets engaged with from these like heinous, very ultra conservative people, and they are incapable of like not putting their opinion out there, which is like, I don't care, but they have to be loudly wrong on the internet at all costs. And this kid, I mean, he's like a young guy he's like from Toronto, which is very bizarre to me. But he just went on this tear about, he's like, this music sucks and you guys are terrible and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, well, thanks for your opinion. Like, whatever, and he's like, nobody cares about this goth gay shit. And he was going on this like rant about just like really awful transphobic, homophobic stuff. And awful. I was like, actually, that's a great shirt. Like you, and I kept just messing with him. I was like, I could tell you're actually quite a fan of what we do because you can't stop showing up to watch this video and commenting, which, I mean, it just engages to show it to more people. So I was like, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I love that line. So I'm going to make some merch with goth gay shit. And we're going to donate proceeds of that we split the proceeds. I think we gave like 15% of that run to the Trevor Project, which helps with outreach to queer LGBTQ plus youth like in America. And I don't know if they do it abroad too, but they help with like sort of getting help to mental health access and, outreach to people that are at risk because they're, queer teenagers essentially. And so we gave a good amount of money to them, and we gave a good amount of money to IRC, which is the International Rescue Committee. They're sort of like an amazing outreach organization, non-political, non-biased as much as one can be, and they help with refugee aid in war zones. And so they are doing a lot of work trying to help with Palestine. And so we donated in his name, it ended up being like over $1,000 that we were able to donate from these t-shirt sales and these patch sales and stuff. So and that's just like the best way to turn something against them. And that's something that I learned in high school, is like, I was the goth kid in a very, very rural area of Georgia, which I was like an alien to these people. And, I had to learn to navigate that ecosystem of just being safe even. And what I found is that, there's two ways to handle a bully. You either ignore them completely, or you become brutally funny and turn their own shit against them. And you make everybody laugh at them, and you make them feel diminutive and stupid. And I like that method because especially nowadays, like I feel like the experiences I've had in my life have just removed a lot of my scruples out of my soul. And I just like to show these people that it's like, no, you're not like some tough guy. Like, you're not a badass. You're an egregious, terminally online internet troll, and you're actually just kind of a loser. So, but that's not to say everybody should go that route, because it doesn't, I don't know. You have to have some thick skin for it, I think.
It's a tough thing to face. I mean, fortunately, touch wood, I've never had a bad thing said to me online about any of I'm very, very small, but nothing has ever really been thrown at us. But I find this whole internet culture, for my sense, I've got an awful sense of humor, and I am that. I was also bullied at school, and I also have that edge of just being able to go, right, okay, come on then. I try not to, because I also get stressed out, and I don't want that to happen. I'd rather be the calm person who walks away and goes and making green tea. But sometimes I just can't hold back, and I'm just going to open it. Some of the comments, like I said, though, but you do it in such a way that is so educated and so right, and you turn it into good. And I think this is one of the things that is very much about our area. We try and make good out of things. We support the people who need it. We try and give back. Yeah. there's something that you know, because obviously making money in the music industry is absolutely cack. It's so hard. One of the
Yeah.
hardest industries in the world to break.
Yeah.
You're there, you're doing it. You're already a
Thank
full-time
you.
musician, you're doing it, and
Yeah.
it's incredible. But you have this, like you said, you have this big online presence. You
Mhm.
did something, and I want to bring this up because I like this as an artist. I like this. You did a calendar called the Thirst Back Calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I
Oh
have to
man.
raise this because as an artist, I'm into subversity, right? I love
Yeah.
a bit of subversion. I
Yeah. Yeah.
work
Same.
I work in an industry where, as a woman, from being, I've been in music since I was 16,
Yeah.
18, 20, there's an expectation upon women to look a certain way, to
Oh
act a
yeah.
certain way, to be a certain thing, right? If you choose to do that, I will back anybody who chooses to be anything they want. If that is
Right.
truly what brings them joy, provided you're not a heinous piece of shit, I will,
Right. Yeah.
I will back you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's this expectation for women to do thirst stuff, particularly now online.
Yeah.
It's an online thing.
Yeah.
This calendar you did was amazing. Tell me a little bit about it because it
Yeah.
was so cool. If you're comfortable to.
Oh, of course. No, it's kind of just funny to me, I guess, when I do talk about this, because like in a lot of ways I don't really take the calendar seriously at all. It started back in 2021 when I first started. When I don't even think Scarlett and I were technically dating yet. We were just kind of getting to know each other. We started dating in early 2022, and yeah, she like there was this comment somebody mentioned at some point in the latter part of that year was like, oh, you should do like one of those silly firefighter calendars because like that's a big thing. Not really anymore. It used to be a big thing
It
in the
was in
States.
our
Yeah.
era. It was a big thing.
Yeah,
You had
yeah.
like yeah,
Yeah, it's like the buff,
yeah.
totally ripped, which is so funny. It's so ironic to me because like you do have those firefighters, but they're like one out of 100. Like that, most firefighters are like pretty chubby dudes that are like, they're strong, but they're not like, they're dad bod kind of guys, and that's cool. It's fine. But anyway, somebody was like, "Oh, you should do one of those calendars," because like I used to do a lot of like thirst trap dumb shit videos because I was, that was when all this was like growing, and I mean, I still have no idea what I'm doing. I want to make that very clear. But I really didn't know what I was doing back then, and it was like sort of a
Doesn't
new
know what he's doing.
frontier.
Have you seen this? Have you seen what he puts out?
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
no, no, yeah. So somebody was like, "Oh, you should do that." And Scarlett and I were just starting to kind of get to know each other and dating and whatnot. And she's like a photographer, so she was like, "Oh, I could shoot that for you." And she's like, "I'll just do that for free." And I was like, all right, why not? Because she's an amazing photographer. She's so good at like just composition and editing and everything. She'll make you look amazing. I look pretty not great until she takes a picture of me, and then I'm like, wow, I look way better in real life. But yeah, so we did it, and it just like went nuts, and it was, and we tried to capture like parts of my personality. It's not just like this hypersexual thing. Like it's definitely like a little risque. It's not anything. It's too much,
Just
but
a little
it's
bit.
it's like just enough to be like a little saucy and fun, but it's really like hokey and ridiculous and like especially the last 2 years of it that we've done. Like I've really leaned into like my love of horror movies, so I do a lot of like monsters and stuff like from horror, like iconic scenes in horror movies that I love, but just like a little like it's like a butt cheek or something. I don't know. And that, and it's like a fun, different thing that we do. But yeah, I don't really like take it seriously. Scarlett is the one that takes it super seriously. Like she loves it. She hates like the pressure, but she loves to like get all the stuff together and the composition and just like setting up the ideas and all that. She's so good at it. And yeah, I mean, but that's like a thing that you realize as a musician that's in a band that's doing like even reasonably well. Like we're not blowing any records away. Like we're not charting or anything like that, but we do okay. But you realize like how thin the margins are with just music, like just record sales, just t-shirts, just streaming, all that combined. It's not enough to sustain multiple people. So, you have to find other things that give you an ability to sustain yourself and not feel that crazy pressure. And I found a pretty decent balance with that. I mean, again, I'm not like wealthy by most people's perception of that, I guess. I mean, I'm comfortable, but again, I don't really care. I just want to make sure that I'm never having to like absolutely struggle anymore, because the first year when I did leave the fire department, it was very, very difficult. It was very touch and go, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to be sustainable for the long term, because I'm also not getting any younger. We're of an age where it's like it either needs to be sustainable or I can't keep doing this,
or you've got to have a job on the side. Yeah,
exactly. And for me, like, I found a couple things, like there's the calendar that helps a lot. And then Johanna Moresco from the band The Crew Shadows runs a makeup line that's actually really, really high quality stuff. And I collaborated with her. She's a really good friend of mine. She's one of my favorite people I've met in the music industry. She's one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. And she sort of approached me a couple of years ago. She was like, hey, I run this makeup line. I was like, yeah, it's cool. And she goes, would you like to do an eyeshadow palette? Because I do a lot of, makeup stuff on the shows and online and whatnot. And I said, yeah, but here's my stipulation. Like I wasn't like really familiar with her products at that time. I'd only used like one or two small things, and they were great. But I was like, I need to know like 100% that this is like a legit eyeshadow palette. Like it has to be something that I would use. Yes. Because I never want to sell something that I don't believe in. And she's like, totally understandable. Let's build a prototype. I'm going to send it to you. And, just let me know what you think. Got one. It was awesome. I'm like, let's do this. So we have, I might have one actually around here.
I saw these online.
There it is.
Yes, so I saw this.
This one is very used and the mirror is broken and disgusting, but we made this 12 pot palette.
Look at those
and
colors.
It's my face and a really cool mirror. It says, oh, hi there, baby bat, which is the whole Goth Dad tagline, that character that I do. Yes. And so like, it's really great. It's vegan, it's cruelty free, it's awesome, it's high quality, like the pigmentation is great. And I have like really sensitive skin, so I have to be really careful about certain stuff. And this stuff has never given me any issues. So we did that one, and it's actually sold out now, but we're doing another one this year, and it's a little bigger actually. I think it's going to be like 15 pots. So like I'm really excited to see like how that turns out, and it's going to be different colors. Like this one is more, we went with like a gradient for this because I like to blend evenly. So you start with like the red and you can kind of blow out into the orange and yellow, and it gives you a nice like sunset gradient. Yes. Same with the purple and the green. The next one we're going to do is more two-tone or two shades of each color. So you'll get like a dark and a light blue and a dark and a light green, that kind of thing. So you can still do some blending, but it gives you more options with the color choices. And that's, at first I didn't love doing all this extra stuff because it's like, I don't want to be like that guy that's like hawking products constantly. But
how the music industry works anymore, it's changed dramatically. I saw those makeup palettes. It's so cool because you mentioned your Goth Dad persona. This is something that went viral on TikTok, I think, a little while back, isn't it?
Yeah, it was back in like 2022, early 22, 2021. Yeah. And I never thought it was going to be a thing, like the thing that you want to go off on social media is never the thing. It's always something you don't think is going to be a big hit with people. And that was, Goth Dad started out as like a very like ridiculous joke between me and our original bass player, Dan, because he's from the Midwest. And that's where the, oh, hi there, like that really dense Midwestern accent comes from. And I was just like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if there was like a 50s Americana TV dad that was also like very goth and like actually new as shit, and and it just came out of nowhere. But yeah, like I don't really, I want to kind of bring it back in a very different way where it's like a little bit more like less of a put upon character, but it's just like more me. And it's just like, well, hi there, baby. That's like, I'm going to teach you about this, or let's talk about like this cool thing in history or this important thing in history, or just like, let's look at this goth band called The Specimen and this club called the Batcave, and just stuff like that, that I feel has value to both the subculture, but also just people in general and like things that I'm interested in. And yeah, I mean, I'm still percolating ideas with that because it's so hard to come up with something. You know, I don't want to just be this person that's just perpetually putting out stuff just to put, you know what I mean? Like that seems contrary.
No, but part of it is the internet sort of thing now. You have to sort of create content and all the time. Do you know, I might sound daft and I apologize if this is offensive in any way, but it just totally got me. I thought Dave Vanian came to mind straight away. If we had an American Dave Vanian, this is exactly what I would be expecting. I'm a big Damned fan. I love the Damned. And I first saw Got That and I was like, oh my God, like total Dave Vanian vibes.
I dig it. I appreciate that. That's a total compliment. No, I super love him and that band. They're very influential.
Oh my God.
I actually really like the early punk stuff the most. But they're amazing. So that's awesome to hear.
I remember the first time I saw them live and they did New Rose and then they did Love and they did Smash It Up, and I was like, oh my God, it was just amazing, just so cool. And Dave Vanian's never changed. He just looks the same no matter what he does. He just
yeah, he is a vampire. Really think he is. It's because he's married to Patricia Morrison from the Sisters, and I mean the two of them are just the cool. I think being that cool just preserves you in stasis.
One thing I do want to ask you, because obviously you've kind of gone through what makes Vision Video, you know, you've gone through the post-punk, you've gone through the bands that really make it. I want to know nerdy things, so things that make you, you've kind of mentioned a bit of this earlier, things that make you, things that make the band. I want to know nerdy things. And also, we have to reference the Fangoria, but in my side as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it all kind of coalesces around stuff like that for me. You know, I grew up watching a lot of horror movies. So I think that's the biggest aspect of like nerdy, weird stuff that influences my tastes and the things that I enjoy in the world. You know, a lot of I got into horror when I was really young, and it's because, you know, my dad and my sister were really into those movies, and I kind of like. I just was allowed to watch stuff that I probably shouldn't have been watching, but I was always I was of the mind that, you know, I was able to separate fiction from reality at a young age. And I just loved it. I loved the feeling of like being scared and like just that intensity of emotion that comes through those films. And just like this, you know, the concept of just like something subversive, something I'm not supposed to be watching or whatever. It was really cool to me. But yeah, I grew up really heavily watching 80s horror, like really campy, ridiculous, like so bad it's good kind of movies. So there's a lot of that. Like, people ask me like my favorite horror movie is Return of the Living Dead. It's just so fun. It's campy, but it's also scary. It's got great special effects. It's got a great soundtrack, which, you know, that kind of stuff really helps me get into like goth and post-punk, which is so cool. Like, cause we're like, for example, this year we're direct support to 45 Grave, which is like crazy to me. We're playing a show with them at this thing called Murder of Crows in New York, which is like kind of like the big goth night event of New York City. So we're doing that at Bowery Ballroom in August. But I've always just been into like weird little niche things, like Warhammer we talked about earlier. Like that, I found Warhammer when I was probably about 12 or 13 when I first found that game. And back then, especially, like, it's very different now. It's way more accessible. It's way more like socially acceptable to be into that sort of thing. Back then, though, this is like the late 90s and early 2000s. It was very, very nerdy. And it was like, I like being a kid there. It's funny. I look back now and it was like mostly like middle-aged older dudes that were like very nerdy dudes, and like there were some girls that played it too, but like it was very like much so like a middle-aged man hobby. And I guess it still kind of is to some degree, but I feel like I follow a lot of creators online on Instagram and TikTok now that are like women who paint and know way more than I do and play way more than I do and do all this stuff. So I think that's a good thing. I think it's a really great thing that it's more accessible and it's more diverse of an audience now. But back then it was it was like social repellent, like even though it's a social thing and you have to like have friends to play it, it was not for everybody, and it still isn't. I mean, it's such a complicated game, and it's such a complicated lore, and like painting miniatures is like not easy. It takes a lot of patience and practice, and but I love all that stuff. I like things that have complexity and depth to them that don't just feel like bubblegum. There's so much. You could spend years reading all these books and all the lore of those things, and there's still more to find. But yeah, I don't know. I just like things that you can tell a lot of passion went into and a lot of love goes into those kinds of things. And it's just a cool thing because you don't even have to know why it's for you, but I think it's lovely to get together with people that are also into that sort of thing and just have that communal experience. Like I went to and this actually will tie into the music video thing with Fangoria and whatnot. I went to a film festival here nearby in Atlanta because our music video got entered into that horror film festival, and it was a weekend event. It was like 2 nights, and it was really fun. It was so much fun because we got to see all these like really cool different genres, subgenres, and subcategories within horror, but just like a lot of passion projects of shoestring budget to like pretty substantial budget. And there were, probably about 100 or so people at the event. And it was at this really great theater in East Atlanta. And anyway, it just felt really great to be around people that like totally are on the same wavelength as you. And I think that's why we gravitate towards weird stuff, is like when you find, whether it's goth or horror or Warhammer or whatever, or video games, like whenever you find that group of people, it's just really comforting to not have to put upon any sort of defense mechanism that you normally have to put on with the world. Like being in the goth subculture, if you walk out, like I live in a very progressive town in Georgia. Athens is very cool. It's very progressive. It's very liberal and queer friendly and stuff like that. But like, as a bisexual man that does goth stuff, like I still, whenever I walk outside the house in a full face of makeup and teased hair and fishnets and all sorts of stuff, there is like a level of armor that you wear for the world until you get to the goth night. Mm-hmm. And then that armor just melts away and you're like, I am in my element. These are my people. This is where I belong. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I wish more people in the world would experience that in a healthy way. Yeah. Because I think that people would be way more happy if they just found that thing that's for them,
something that makes you comfortable. This is the Games Workshop thing as well. It's feeling comfortable to go through it. And as a woman, I said this in my last one actually, because Paul from Black Orchid Empire is also a Warhammer guy.
Oh, cool.
I said walking into a Games Workshop, or as it's now known as Warhammer shops, as a woman, as a young girl in my early 20s, was quite an experience because we weren't that common girls who played it. I mean, I used to play Necromunda as well.
Oh, so nice.
That was quite rare that people had Necromunda or knew how to play it. And that's, yeah. But I was always I used to enjoy painting them more than I did playing it. I found the rules, getting the codex, getting the blast radius, setting it up, having a point of army, and I was just like, I have ADHD. By the time I've got to that point, you've lost me. I'm off somewhere. I want to go and do something else.
It's so much. Yeah. And I think, it's funny that I think there's just as much value to be gained from the game and from that world and that lore and all that stuff from just having that experience of just painting. Because I mean, I've to date not played a game again since I left it in my early 20s. So I'm having to relearn it because the game is so dramatically different now. It's totally different from what I remember. And there's so many rules. Like they've made it simpler in a lot of ways, but they've made so many rules for each individual model, and it's just a lot. So I think that it's just as valid though to sit and paint and enjoy like really being fascinated by the creative side of it as much as it is to be in the like sort of tactician gameplay side of it. And I don't think anybody should be disparaged for doing one or the other or not both or whatever.
Separate hobbies, buying it, painting it, playing it, all separate hobbies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What army did you field? What was your thing?
So here's the long story short. It was originally called Eldar. It's now Eldari. Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah.
I bought it specifically because I wanted the Harlequins and I wanted to paint them. Did I ever buy the Harlequins and paint them? No. So we will get there eventually.
One day.
Yeah, one day. So I had the Striking Scorpions, and I had me Dire Avengers, and I had me Warlocks, and I had it like me little ship. I can't remember the name of it. I have got it written down just in case because I had to go back through it. But I painted them all up a different way, and then I took them into a Games Workshop shop, and the guy went, "No, you have to paint them to the Codex," and I was like,
"No, you don't."
But I've made them look like the Borg from Star Trek, and they were like, "You can't do that," and I was like, "But I have." So I took them home and I repainted them all as per the Codex, right? Went back in and he was like, "You've not done a very good job of painting them." So I took them all back home again and painted them all like the Borg again.
There you go. Yeah, it's like whatever, man. Yeah, some of this there are, and that's just like a gatekeeper to the worst degree. You know, I mean, that's just somebody that didn't want a woman invading his like incel nerd space, which is just like insane to me. I'm like half of when you meet people like that at a Games Workshop or Warhammer store or whatever, and you're like your whole desire in life is to find a woman who plays Warhammer, and here it is, and you're pushing them away, and it's just like it's so insane to me. Like what a stupid thing. And I play a lot of games online. Like I've been playing a lot of Helldivers 2. And I play a lot of just this and that and the other. And every time I experience a woman or a femme presenting person in a game, like on voice chat, I try to just go out of my way to make them feel welcome and part of it. And it's like, because I just can't imagine how frustrating it must be to be a woman or femme presenting or whatever, feminine at all. And like going into a game that you just want to have fun, and then everybody's just a dick for no reason because of nothing. It's just so insane to me. So yeah, but I feel like that culture is diminishing because women are very much so visible within like nerd communities now. Like we do a thing, we're not doing it this year, but we played this event called Dragon Con, which is here in Atlanta, and it's just massive. If you ever get the chance, take a vacation, take a week, come to Atlanta, go to Dragon Con. It's every Labor Day weekend, which is like usually in between August and September, and it's just amazing. Anything you're into, you will find it there. The most obscure thing, like one year, cosplay is like a big thing there. And one year I usually dress up in some like horror related thing. And one year I did Victor Pascal from Pet Sematary, the college student who gets hit by a car and his brain is just like hanging out of his head. And I wore like the short shorts and the trainers and like the hoodie. And I was shocked at how many people were like, "Oh, Victor Pascal." And I was like, damn, this is so cool, you know? But it's really cool to be there because you see every year there are more women, and there are more women into really obscure things that are very nerdy. Like I've seen quite a few women doing like Warhammer cosplays there, like not just the like Sisters of Battle, which is, I mean, it's cool and it's totally valid, but like they do other things too. And it's so cool. Like I saw a woman do like an Adeptus Mechanicus cool thing that was, and it's just so awesome to know that diversity is progressing within these realms, because they're not, I mean, just 20 years ago, this stuff was like very white, very male, very
Yes.
straight white male. That was it. And now it's like nobody bats an eye if a trans woman walks in to throw down on a tabletop. And
No,
I love that. I think it's super important.
it's just the
Um,
best. It's just the best, isn't it?
yeah.
I didn't ask what army you are though. You didn't tell
So
me.
I've been kind of painting a few. I went back to my roots with the core. The biggest collection that I have is Blood Angels of the Space Marines, because I mean they're space vampires. It's like the gothest, and I like their lore. I like that they lost their Primarch in the Great Horus Heresy, and they all just have daddy issues. And I mean, I don't know. I think it's like funny that they are but I find, I guess there's a lot of like I find myself in pieces of their lore, like the sort of like the rage, the sanguine thirst, blood rage that they experience, and they go into this like sort of ungovernable state. And I've never really been like an angry person, but to me it's like I liken that to like when I get into dark places where I
Yes.
just feel like it's impossible to get out of it. And so I think that was really cool that they like built this sort of like exposition of mental health into this
Into
lore of these ridiculous characters. But I also I've been painting some just Imperial Guard, because I do like that army, because it's like it's just regular humans. There's really nothing that special about them. They're just a lot of them, and they're sort of the backbone of humanity's like military might in the universe. But I also have a handful of orcs because I love them. They're just so goofy to me. Like I love the lore of like, they're like warp created mold, basically. They're like sentient fungus essentially, and the warp energy like kind of presides within them. And my favorite piece of lore about them is that like if enough orcs get together and believe in something so much that it actually will happen, it'll like manifest. So like for example, they believe that the color red makes their vehicles go faster, so they paint everything red, and it works because enough of them believe in it, in totality. And I just think that's like goofy as hell. So I actually bought some, Scarlett got some for my birthday last year for me, and I'm doing like a kit bash thing where I 3D printed some tiny little cats, and I'm going to build my own like sort of kit bash army that is like, it's just going to take the rules from whatever regular orc, cohort, but essentially they have the lore of this army that I'm going to work on is that they like took over this human world, but the human world was they were like really big into cats for some reason, and they sort of worshipped cats as like a saint of the emperor or whatever. And the orcs realized that all these people were like really obsessed with these cats, and they're like, well, if the humies are all into these cats, then these are powerful creatures and we should take them and we should keep them. So that all these orcs are going to have like cats on their shoulders.
yes.
It's just going to be silly. It's just something fun. Just something that's like goofy to show up to a game with and be like, this doesn't really affect the game in any way, but they are inspired in battle by their cat companions. But yeah, so those are my three that I just really love. But I don't know. It's like I like the concept that they did with Kill Team, which is like a reduced version. It's kind of more similar to like Necromunda. It's like it's more about the individual character models than it is like this large army, and it's faster games. It's more tactile rather than strategic versus tactical. Yeah, so I'm really kind of reinvigorating my love for that world. But I like always read the books, and I'm just a dork about it. but I think it's just great, and I love it because it's meaningful too. It is a satire of Thatcherism and fascism, and like,
Yeah.
there are no good guys. That's what people don't understand about the Warhammer world. They're like, well, who's like the heroes? I'm like, no, everybody's bad. Like the humans all worship this corpse god emperor who's like psychically holding things together, but like not really. And like everybody's like, oh, he in only in death the emperor knows your name, but like, does he really? He's also killing like 1,000 psychers a day to keep this giant machine alive, or that keeps him alive. So I just love that satire, and that like really the grim dark future where it's like,
Yes.
no, everything sucks and it's horrible, but that kind of allows you to just sort of go, fuck it. Like, it's more about, finding the gameplay style and finding the individual characters that speak to you, rather than going like, oh, these are good and these are bad.
It's a personal preference, isn't it?
Yeah.
I generally found there's a personal preference, and I generally found there's always one person that turns up with the Necrons, the ones that could respawn. There's always that person. Yes,
yeah.
The Oh God says it all for us. Thank you very much.
I know. It's like I love the videos I've seen a lot of like TikToks and Instagram reels where it's like people, it's all in jest, but it's like that day that somebody shows up to play Necrons, and it's like at a hobby shop, and they're like, oh, cool, I've got my Devastator Marines of my Dark Angels, and we're going to win the day. And then the guy comes in, he's like, what are you playing? Necrons. The guy's like, good game, I'll see you later. Like, you won. Like, and I mean, there is a lot of insane imbalance to the game. But it's like win or lose. I think that what I love about Warhammer is that it's similar to like D&D and other games. It's that the die tell the story.
Yes.
It's not really about winning or losing. It's about trying, but it's like watching this cool story unfold about a battle between these very vastly different armies that have such intricate rules, and like things can change like last minute, and it can all be just luck of the roll, but it also really relies on your knowledge of like your army and your intimate knowledge of these a million rules in the codex, and knowing how to use them, when to use them, and when it's like best to use them. And
a lot of going, hang on, I'll get me book. Hang on, where's the stencil? Hang on.
It's nice that there's like an app now too, where you can just kind of like search for stuff, and it's not like flip. But I am like old school, and I have the codexes, and I love the codexes because they're just so beautiful, and the artistry is just that's I think at the core of it, my love for Warhammer and tabletop gaming in general is just like the artistry and that passion that you can tell, like so much creativity and so much energy and passion and love went into building this world. And it's just a lot of fun. And I mean, anybody that's even remotely nerdy, I'm like, you need to check this out because it's so cool. It's not actually cool, but it's fun.
It is cool. Say we're cool, please. We're cool.
We're cool. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Even if you don't and you just want to read the books, get the Dan Abbott books.
Yeah.
Like,
and the games are great. Like Space Marine 1 and now 2 is a phenomenal game. Cool lore, really great world building. There's some really great strategy games. There's a game called I think it's called Battle Line. It's essentially as close as you can get to playing tabletop without it being like super intricate rules. Like it's pretty easy, but it's a turn-based game version of it. And that's such a great game. And like we were saying earlier, I love that you can engage with some of it or all of it or one piece of it. It doesn't matter. Like whatever, you just got to do what makes you happy in life. I mean, that's like, it's just the simple concept of just doing something that makes you feel a little bit of joy that nobody can take from you and nobody can govern that joy. Like you just experience it and you live on your own terms because you're not harming anybody with your level of Warhammer consumption, you know, other than maybe your bank account, which is
your bank account is definitely it's not going to survive it.
We won't talk about the loans that people are pulling out to fund their armies, but no, but to roll back to back to nerdy stuff. Yeah, you mentioned this like video that we did.
Yes.
So
this
that was
incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, we had this amazing experience where back in 2023 we so I got interviewed by Phil Nobile Jr., who's the chief editor of Fangoria, and he just found us randomly through a friend's recommendation. He lives up in Philadelphia, and he came to one of our shows and just loved the band. And like, there's a lot of like little Easter eggs of horror stuff in our songs. Like in the song "Organized Murder," there's like a little clip of dialogue nicked from the remake of Night of the Living Dead, which is a phenomenal movie.
Yes.
The 1991 version, the 1990 version, I should say. And then like in modern horror, in the first track, that there's that first little sample that you hear of dialogue, that's actually from one of my favorite horror movies called The Beyond, which is a Lucio Fulci Italian horror movie about the gates of hell opening on Earth, and that felt very appropriate. But anyway, he interviewed me for the magazine, and around that time we were simultaneously working on this music video. We were like planning it and organizing it, and he said, "Oh, you guys are working on this cool video." And I told him about it. He's like, "We can premiere that for you." And I was like, "Dude, yes, that would be amazing." So the video, when we shot the video, it came at a really amazing time because we hired this kid. I say kid, I shouldn't say that. He's a grown adult, but I feel like I'm of the age where I can call somebody he was 23 years old. His name was Elwood Quincy Walker Jr., and he is a director who lives in LA, who is going to be a household name in horror in 10 years. I mean, it's just a matter of fact because he's so amazing. A friend of mine who works in the film industry out there sent me, he was originally going to try to direct it, but he has projects that tied him up, and we were like, dude, I get it. But he goes, I know who you need to get for this thing. And he sends me Elwood's short films on his website. And I watched one and I was like, this is it. And I watched the second one and I was like, it just doubled down. I'm like, this is the guy. He nailed it. My friend was just absolutely nailed it. So thanks, Ryan. But so I called him up and I said, hey, we have mutual friends. And he recommended you. And I loved these shorts that you did. They're exactly the kind of tone and like there's a little tiny bit of camp, but it's really dark too and very intense. And I was like, so we're shooting this video, and the premise of the video is pretty simple. We like wrong a witch. We accidentally run her over in our hearse, which I do have a 1990 Cadillac hearse.
No way.
No way. Oh yeah. But fun fact that hearse in that video is not mine because mine is currently inoperable due to a battery issue. So we had to borrow my friend's hearse. I have a friend with a hearse.
You just have a friend with a hearse.
Yeah, they're easy to kind of find. They're usually in pretty poor shape out here, but they're pretty easy to find out, especially in the South. Like not many people are like trying to buy up hearses. So anyways, we borrowed my friends for that shoot. But anyway, the whole shtick of the video is we accidentally run over a witch because we're distracted driving to the show, and she dies, or so it seems, but she comes back through the power of her will or whatever. And she shows up at the show. We're playing at the 40 Watt Club, which is like an iconic club in Athens. Mm-hmm. It's like one of my favorite clubs in the world. And she shows up in the audience and she exacts her revenge by turning the crowd into these like zombie demon creatures, whatever you want to call them. And they attack us en masse. And we have to sort of fight our way out, and nobody makes it out alive, and she gets her revenge. But the song is In My Side, and the video is amazing. We shot it over 2 days. It was like 48 hours.
Oh, wait.
And Lulu Duchess Derriere. She's a friend of ours. She's a like world famous burlesque performer. She came down and was our witch, and we had this really interesting time where basically there was this big strike happening for writers and creatives in the film industry because they were asking for protections and increases in pay and this, that, and the other. And so it was this massive freeze in production of any kind. And so we have in Atlanta, which is about an hour away from Athens, there's a lot of film industry people here because there's Hollywood, and then you've got Atlanta. And Atlanta's become a big hub for film. And there were all these amazing world-class production people that would do special effects makeup and prop design. And we hired all these incredible people that were not able to do work in their field at the time because we were an independent. It's just a music video from an independent band, has no connection to any studio. So we were able to pay them as much as we could, but they were just happy to be working.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have been able to afford it at a normal rate, but people were just like, you know, and I tried to approach them, you know, I approached each makeup artist and said, hey, here's our budget. I'd love for you to be on this. I understand if you can't do it because it's too little. And nobody said no, because they were all just like, we just want to work. We just want to do something.
Yeah.
Like I would do this for next to nothing because I just want to do my job. So we had amazing artists from like The Walking Dead, like Haley Trefiro and her team, and Kyle, and all these amazing artists that came out. And then we had character actors, some of them from The Walking Dead. You'll actually recognize some of them if you're really a big Walking Dead fan. You'll be like, oh, I've seen that guy before. And it just turned like the whole thing was shot in a whirlwind. And we shot the first intro scene, we shot the first night, and it took about 6 or 7 hours. But the majority of it that happens at the 40 Watt Club, we shot starting at 8 a.m. and we shot until 4 a.m. the next day. So it was a 20-hour shoot, and it was wild. I mean, we were like literally last minute trying to film stuff like until the 40 Watt Club was like, you have to go home. Like, this is it. But that was the only day that we had. Everybody had to go off their separate ways. And yeah, it's just one of those videos that like, it turned out beyond better than anything I could have imagined. It was just so much better than anything that I conceived of. I mean, we'd storyboarded it and it was visually spot on to what I thought it would look like. But the passion and the love that went into that really comes through, and it was just it was such a fun thing. And then it got premiered by Fangoria. Like a whole bunch of people shared it that were really cool, like Joe Bob Briggs and Darcy the Mail Girl from The Last Drive-In, which is like, if you're a horror nerd, that's like huge. And then like Elvira shared it, and it was just, she followed us on all the social media stuff. And so, you know, Cassandra's, I haven't gotten to meet her yet, but it's just so cool that like, you know, one of my idols like knows who we are, which is so, it's wild. But yeah, it was just a great time. And I grew up wanting to do, before I joined the military, I was going to move to California to like do special effects makeup. Like I learned how to do goth makeup through teaching myself special effects makeup when I was a teenager. And I wish I had done that a lot of the time, but this was a cool way for me to feel like I had gotten to do that in some way. So yeah, it was really fantastic. It was really cool.
It is such a cool video. If you get a chance to watch it, you have to just go watch it. It's so cool. Oh, yeah. It's so unbelievably cool.
It's a tiny horror film in like is 8 minutes. It's just great.
Yeah. There's this bit where you look at the camera and you go, oh fuck. Like that. You can't hear it, but you can see it. And
you can see it, yeah.
You can
and then
feel
I
it. And
stab a zombie with a microphone stand. And the guy that made that, it's actually retracting. He built a microphone stand that goes in. This guy named Renee, he's a prop master in Atlanta, and he's so cool. And so I do the stab, and it like literally just sucks into the telescopes in. And then they had built a blood squib out of a fire extinguisher that was full of fake blood. So when I do that, what you see blowing out is a fire extinguisher full of blood just going, which was awesome. It was so cool. We were covered in sticky, fake blood at the end of the night. It was amazing.
Still finding it weeks after filming, going, what's that?
Oh, I still find it like actually Dan, our original bass player, he's actually come along to play some shows here and there now again, because Dan's a professor at the University of Georgia, so he had to kind of leave the band to sort of temporarily, at least, to like focus on his career.
Yeah.
And he still has the bass that he used to bludgeon one of the zombies with, and he gets hit with a lot of blood, and the bass guitar was just soaked, and he's still like, there's still like red on the guitar, and it's so funny. It's so funny.
Oh my god. No, it's truly brilliant. I've watched it quite a few times. I watched it again before we did this, and I was
nice.
like, go back to it, and I was like, yeah, this is just, it's so good.
Yeah.
But you are very natural. I know you said earlier on you feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're very natural, you're very confident. The videos you put out are just immense. I have no idea where to start with the social media thing. I'm from an era where I got away with doing everything without it being on camera. And now it feels completely different. And what you do put out there, the content that, we've seen, the content that you do, the goth dad thing, the whole, just everything is just so cool. Just alone, you have a whole empire in the social media bit as well as the music. And
it's a lot. I mean, it takes a lot of work, and I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, especially lately. It's been so hard to feel like I'm creating something of real value other than just ranting online about things that I believe in. But like, I'm getting back to this feeling of creativity with it again, where I want to make stuff that's a little bizarre and off the wall. Like I've actually had this idea. I want to start making these short horror films.
Yes.
Very, very simple, kind of like that video, but like way less. It's just me and just some editing and like, just making creepy vibes and horror film stuff, but in like 30-second like stories or whatever. I think that would be really fun. But I want to get back to making the social media fun for me again, because I had a lot of fun doing social media stuff in 2020 and 2021, especially before it kind of started to feel like it's like a job, and I want to get back to that creative, like pushing the envelope with it and just having fun with it. I don't know, because if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. Got
to do what makes you happy. You got to do what makes you happy, and you've got to make it enjoyable. Otherwise, it does become just a chore, and that's not going to work. So, no, I totally understand that. I totally get that, and that's my finding and learning with it. One of the things I'll come to this. I want to ask you before I come to my last question.
Yeah,
what's next for Vision Videos? So you're going to tour. I'm going to get to see you finally after missing you the last time and being furious about it. What's next? So where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a bunch of new music, and it's very different. It's still well within the world of goth rock and post-punk. It's a lot more aggressive. It's a lot more, I feel like I'm getting back to my roots with writing. And also it's a very different situation because I've always been the primary songwriter. So I kind of construct the core pieces of the song, but it's always been sort of a democracy of choice with what we do and how we do things and the sound of things. And you have to make compromises. And the band is totally different now. I'm the only original band member, and I'm sort of making executive decisions on what we do with these things, because I do have a very defined sense of what I want the next volley of music to sound like. And it's very I've been listening to a lot of like early post-punk, like when it was very experimental and weird. Most people think of Bauhaus, for example. They think of the classic like Bela Lugosi's Dead or She's in Parties or but there's a lot of songs that are really weird and experimental and dissonant and just, and they had the room to kind of experiment with that sound and just building a vibe of building like creepy, weird, dissonant sound. So I still want the voice of Vision Video to remain. Like I want people to recognize it as Vision Video, but there's a lot more guitar driven stuff. It's a little bit more like punk rock. It's a little bit more
Yeah.
like just got a little bit more piss and vinegar to it. And that's just a lot of that is because I'm very frustrated with the state of the world, but I've been doing it's just a lot more rock and roll versus I feel like the first two records especially were, but there's still elements in the third record, but they're very like radio friendly, uh very accessible. And I don't want to totally disenfranchise people who like that through Vision Video, but I want this to be a very markedly different record if it does become an album, because I'm not even trying to write like a full body of album work right now. I'm just focusing on individual songs, individual ideas. It feels like what is coalescing is an album eventually, but there's no like, we're going to try to have a record by this time. What I think is going to happen is we're just going to start releasing singles throughout the latter part of this year.
Yeah.
And whenever we've hit like maybe 5 or 6 singles, I'll probably have a defined sense of what that next record really sounds like. And then I'll focus on adding, a B-side to those singles. And then we put that out. And it's, because you have to, I mean, in essence, you have to eventually put out another record or another piece of physical media to sell to keep it sustainable. But I'm less like worried about timelines and like getting to that point right now. I just want it to be fun, and I want to write music that I want to hear, that I don't hear a lot of musicians making. I think also, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I think that goth and post-punk music is having a really great kind of revitalization right now, and it's becoming really popular again. And that's a good thing, 100%. But there's also a tendency, because of things like social media, where people are gravitating towards one specific sound because it's successful. And there's a lot of bands that sound exactly the same right now. And it's not bad. It's not like a bad sound. It's just there's a lot of the same thing being done. And that always happens. That happened in the 70s. When the Sex Pistols came out, everybody wanted to be the Sex Pistols. So they all sounded like the Sex Pistols. And then The Cure blew up, and then everybody wanted to sound like The Cure. And so, music scenes tend to orbit what is successful. I mean, it's just the nature of the thing. But I want to make music that really honors like rock and roll, like bands like Cortex or The Specimen or The Sound, like these really early bands that really defined that realm for me, without just replicating it though. Like I want rock and roll music, band based music with a drum kit and like energy and like vigor and just like passion to it, and it's just something that's just a little bit different. But yeah, and I think I'm achieving that. Like when I listen to the instrumentation of some of the stuff that I've written, I'm like, this is really fun. Like this is fun to play. It's fun to listen to. It makes me excited for that next generation of Vision Video. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say exactly when all this stuff's going to come, because, I because I'm giving it more time, I really want it not to be perfect, but I really want it to be like, by the time I get to a studio, one of the things that I've failed to do in the past is like be patient and like really, really, really rehearse intensely. And I want to walk into the studio with zero doubt and just be like, all right, it is now past the time to record this. Like I'm so ready that it's just like, there's no, like I could just go in there and nail it. because then I'm not second guessing anything. And I'm like, I'm sure that this is the final product. Because sometimes you go into a studio and you write something and it sounds great, but then you're like, man, I should have added that right here.
Yes.
And that sucks. Like it just, I mean, and I think that always happens, but whatever. I this time I'm just giving it more breathing room to really marinate in the ideas and really just be open to them and not feel like there is a back end date where it's like, oh well, these have to be done by this time because we have this studio reserved, and like it'll be out when it's ready, and I think that's a better way of moving forward.
That's it. We live in an era now where you don't have to have a contract with a record label and have an album and finish it and polish it. We live in an era where you can produce music in the way that you want to. You can release it in the way that you want to if you want to release singles. Most things rely on 20 seconds on TikTok at the moment. If you create something that you can capture a small part of and goes viral, you've done your bit. If you create something that is a single and somebody likes it, you've done your bit. It's not like it used to be, and you have to play the music industry to your way now. And there's no point when you are an independent band releasing something you are not 100% happy with, because the only person you've done disservice to is yourself then. And your fans, if you're just putting stuff out for the sake of it, there's no point.
Yeah. And that's a major reason why we've remained independent, is because it's not for, we've had offers that have been pretty good, but I just don't, it was never really about the money aspect of the financial security, like, because it would be nice to have label support in a lot of ways. It would make my life dramatically easier. But like there was one label we really narrowly almost signed to, and it would have been a great fit. But the last thing that told me like almost last minute was like, we had a discussion about when our first record would be put out, because it was already recorded, it was ready to go. And it was like, oh, well, you'll be put into a series of releases and you'll be put on the schedule. And I went, nah, that doesn't work for me, because I don't want to be told when and how to put these things out. But I'm also really glad, because I also don't have anybody telling me, oh, you can't talk about this on social media. You can't be political about this. You got to like tone down your, that. And not to say that anybody would have even said that to me, but I don't have to worry about it. I can market this and sell it in the way that I want and the way that I feel is justified. And also I can pivot if something isn't working. I can stop completely. And I can go try something else. Whereas if you're locked in with agreements or money or whatever, or a calendar or a schedule of release, you have to do the thing by contractual basis. And I think for a lot of people, being on a label really would benefit, but a lot of people can't. If you have the drive and you have the passion for it and you have the willingness to work ridiculously hard all the time, like 10 times harder than you would if you were on a label, then go for the independent route, because there's just no sense in giving up half of what you're going to make, especially if you're not making much at all, because that money needs to be reinvested to the band. It needs to push forward if you're going to keep doing this in a long-term way. It's one thing if you're just going to put out one record and be like, cool, we did it. But if you want to be a long-term musician and do it professionally or whatever is your job, then you have to look at it as like, how do we make this work? And it takes reinvestment, and it takes sacrifice, and it takes just grueling obsession. I think that's like my biggest advice to people that are musicians or artists of any kind, is like, if you want this to become your job, you have to become obsessed with it, and you have to be willing to work so insanely hard for it. And that might not even be enough. Like it's
not guaranteed.
Decide. Yeah, no. But that has to be there. The foundation of work and hard work and ethics and work ethic has to be there for it to even have the ability to take off to any extent, because you can write the coolest song in the world and have it go mega viral. And that's a great moment. I mean, that's never actually happened for us. We've never had like a moment yet. Really the virality in music, but we've been successful, not because of that one moment. Because if you are a musician that has a huge moment on social media and you don't follow that up with hard work and consistency, that is just a moment and it's gone. And it might actually be really harder in a way because you're not ever feeling like you're doing the right thing. And that's crazy. Like it's all about slow eventual progress, and like I think it's weird for a lot of people because we seem to appear out of nowhere with Vision Video, but we didn't. I mean, we started in 2017 as a 3-piece. I wrote all these songs, and then it really grew as social media grew. But I spent an absolutely staggering amount of time in 2020 during the lockdowns doing videos.
Yes.
Because I was a firefighter and a medic, and I would go on shift for 24 to 48 hours. But if I was coming off a 24-hour shift, I had 48 hours off. So I had 2 days of just nothing. And all of a sudden, everything that I loved in life, like going to shows and going to, be social and go to dance parties, all that was gone. So my outlet for catharsis and fun is gone. So I just went, okay, I'm just going to make silly videos and market this thing that I really enjoy, which is making music. And it took a crazy amount of work. So it wasn't just something that happened because like Goth Dad went viral. No, like it helped, but it was not one thing. It was a multitude and a conglomeration of hard work that we put into this thing that eventually grew to a level of where it is now. And it's not, it's like there's still room to grow, and there's still so much more I want to do with this. But I think the other angle of that, though, and the important thing to remember is like it can't be about money. There's
no money in it.
Rich, yeah. I mean, if you're trying to make money, maybe we've been fortunate that we've done pretty well, and at this point. But like, if your goal is to become rich and famous, like that's probably not going to happen because you're doing it for a hollow reason. And I think people will see through that very quickly. I've met a lot of people that are chasing that in this realm, and I'm perfectly nice people oftentimes, but you can really tell when that's the thing, because those kind of people will blow you off the second that they get a scent of something that's, worth chasing, that will help them elevate or whatever. And you also get a lot of people that even at like my level that are like, it's like kiss ass bullshit, but then they'll also talk shit about you on the internet. And I'm like, okay, I see your true colors, and it's fine. But it's like, I know the people that are like, it's very obvious to me when you meet people that are in this because they like creating real art that matters, that they're passionate about, versus the people that are just trying to be cool and get laid and get money and do dumb shit.
Yes.
That stuff's hollow. There's no point. And there's much easier ways to acquire all that stuff than being a musician. I promise you.
Oh my God, that has never changed. So there's always been those people. I have seen my fair share of those people in my past. Oh my word.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating to see, because obviously it's been your journey, something I've followed. I think since lockdown, I think it was when I started, and I've seen a lot of different things going on. And like I said, you fill that void for me. There's a gap, and there's certain bands that are coming to fruition now that are really just hitting a spot where I just think this is what I've been waiting for, and Vision Video do that, I am passionate about so much, and the music industry is a big passion of mine. Like I said, I've been in it since I was a really young person, and it's like you never leave. Even if you do leave and you go and do another career, you never leave. It's always.
I figured if I ever quit this band, it wouldn't be long until I did something like another project, another band or something. I'm always kind of toying with this idea of making something on the side, like a side project. But I think that's like a silly thing to call something, because it may not be the primary focus of your creative outlet professionally speaking, but I think everything that you create deserves as much passion as you can possibly put into it, and as much love for it. But I've been toying, I'm always like moments away from doing like a cheesy like 80s synth pop thing, like Dan actually from the bass player that I'm going to see DJ tonight. he he writes a lot. Like Dan is an unbelievable writer, because he writes these little hooky moments, like the song "In My Side." The reason why that song is popular is because the bass line. He wrote that bass line. It's not complicated. It's very easy. You can learn that bass line in 30 seconds if you're at all even reasonably talented with the bass. But it's great because he does little things that defy your expectation, but it's still catchy, and it's just earworm. He just has a way with, like, it's not math to him. It's like, it's just this, like, he knows exactly how to trim something. Like, he's like, oh, that's a little too long. Take just a little bit less, or take these notes out. And it's just like magic. So he's been writing all these like very erasure, like, synth pop songs.
Yes.
And he's like, man, we need to make this, so I'm always thinking about that. And I think that'll probably happen at some point this year, like where we just start messing around with that just for fun, not to like, we're going to put this out and this is going to be a thing. Like, I just want to, like,
World's your oyster. Do what you want.
Yeah. It's
why not?
Fun. I mean, writing should be fun. It should be one of the, there are 3 times that you really have fun in the music industry. Everything else kind of sucks. Number 1, the writing process. Number 2, the recording process. And number 3, the show. Everything else about the music industry is a nightmare. It's not fun at all. But those are the 3 times. And yeah, like, I'm just excited to, I don't know, like, do something that's also a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Like, I love synth pop, and I listen to a lot of, like, new wave and 80s synth pop, but also modern synth pop and synth based stuff. Like, Corinne is like one of my favorite modern artists. And they do like really post-punky synth, beautiful. I mean, it's just so heartbreaking and beautiful, and these awesome synths that they use. And Morgie's got just a wonderful voice. But anyway, so I'm always, no matter whether it's with Vision Video or something else, I will always be making something with music. And I DJ as well. Dan and I DJ our local goth night with our friend Steven and our friend Adria, who's in Tears for the Dying, which is a great death rock band. We do like a big 4. We just do round robin with that, and and that's great. We just had goth prom this weekend, or a weekend ago, where everybody got all gussied up, and Scarlett, being a photographer, she took prom photos for people, and it was great. It was really fun.
I love that. I'm living in the wrong city. I need to move.
Well, come next year, come on down to Athens. And
come to Athens, go to Goth Prom.
What you should do is, we have a thing called Southern Gothic here in Athens. It's a 2-day festival that we do. This will be our 3rd year doing it. We just sort of solidified who we're inviting to have out this year. But it's 2 days, and it sort of coincides with this thing that we do in Athens. It's this free festival that the city actually funds it through grant. It's called The Wild Rumpus, which I don't know if you know the book, Where the Wild Things Are.
Yes.
It's based on that, but it's essentially what it is it's the Saturday before Halloween, or unless Halloween is on a Saturday, and then it'll be then. But it's essentially a parade that anybody can just jump into, and everybody's in costumes, and there are probably like 15,000, maybe more people. And Athens is not a big city, but they walk all the way around downtown, and it ends in this huge dance party where there's this like massive sound stage, and Dan actually usually DJs that. And they actually have industrial grade fog machines, and they fog the city streets, and there's like fire performers and lasers. And it's like what I felt when I was a kid that Halloween was supposed to be. That's what you get. So that happens sort of early in the night on the Saturday. So we do a Friday, Saturday with Southern Gothic, and the Rumpus is Saturday. But as soon as that kind of winds down around like 10:30, everybody goes off to clubs and music venues. So we're right where it ends at the 40 Watt Club, and we'll have bands, and Dan and I DJ at the end of that. So it's worth a trip. Maybe next year, come down from the UK and And everybody that's ever come to it is like, wow, I don't want to ever undersell it. And I don't think it's, or I should say oversell it, but I don't think it's possible. I
That
think
sounds
like it's
incredible.
just so much fun. It's
Oh
so
my gosh.
wild. Yeah, it's a really great time.
I love it. Right. That is a plan for the future.
There you
An
go.
absolute plan for the future. Right. Lastly, I always ask this.
Yeah.
It's I do now send it out. I used to just drop it on people, but now I send it out so that I don't get too many shocks because I've eaten fire, I've been in a mosh pit,
Yeah.
I've eaten biscuits, all sorts. I've got to do a photo shoot for Thorn, who does these amazing festivals here in Newcastle, where she's also like a burlesque performer. So we end up with fake blood all over us and all sorts.
Yeah.
They're insane. So, anything you want to ask me, you can literally anything. You can challenge me. I will always give an open and honest answer, as long as I don't cause any harm and I can financially afford to do it. I will absolutely be down.
Okay. So, what's your favorite horror film of all time?
My favorite horror film. So this is a little bit sketchy because sometimes it doesn't really seem like a horror film anymore, but it is the original Wicker Man.
That's a great choice. That's a fantastic and totally horror.
Yes. 100%.
Fine choice. Oh yeah, that movie is terrifying.
And do you know what it is? I sat with my husband and watched it, and he was like, "It's not really that scary," and I'm like, "But why not?" And he's like, "But it's not," and I'm like, "But it is. But it is."
I mean, it's like a cult and people chasing this man to doom. I mean, that is a wild, terrifying movie. Yeah.
And the remake I never watched. I wouldn't watch it because I love it is one of my all-time favorite films. Not just favorite,
way better. Yeah, the remake is ridiculous.
They sold the island when I was at university. The island was up for sale, and it was for like at that point it was like £1 million, and I was like, if I had that money, I would be buying that island. It would be mine. I like a lot of old horror.
Yeah.
So Bela Lugosi's White Zombie is one of them I absolutely adore. But I also like a lot of the Japanese horrors where you get a lot of the silencers, like The Grudge, The Ring, things like that. But to answer your question, The Wicker Man is my absolute.
Yeah, that's a great. I got that approved. That's awesome. Great choice.
It's a legendary film. And Lord Summer Isle and the pure pagan feel of it. So very Scottish and British as well. I think once you are, with very British feel to it, eating tinned peaches because the crops haven't grown, just
Yeah, no, it taps into the, I think, the cultural like essence of a lot of English culture, and it gets to the root of something that's been around for a very, very long time, and I think that's really cool.
England still somewhat feels that way. I think particularly like the Northeast, we still have ruins, we still have lots of stone circles, we still have lots of history, we have a lot of witchy people still, we have that very vibe going on. Even like you say with the goth music, it has the vibe, it still feels it, but 100%.
That's awesome.
Honestly, that's so cool because nobody's ever asked us that. I never thought that would come up. So honestly, I am looking forward to the show. I honestly, I was gutted when I missed you with the Chameleons. I was devastated. So I'm gonna be there. Be at the Clooney. It's gonna be a great show. You've got a big tour ahead of you. We're sort of in the middle, aren't we? If I look at the tour list, we're sort of smack bang in the middle.
Yeah.
You're going to be
it'll be great though, and it'll be nice because while catching us with the Chameleons would have been amazing, this is our full set, so you'll get the real full experience, and opening for another band, especially like the Chameleons, that's my favorite post-punk band. Like, it's my favorite band of all time, which was an honor, but it's their show, so what we did was still very political, but it's very like reduced. Yes. And it's very like cognizant of the fact that this is not our show. And, I need to be a little bit more careful about messaging and just sort of not like, I don't want to piss off the crowd,
I get it. I get it.
It's
not
like
yours.
hints at it, but not quite full force into it. So this will be the full experience.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people can be really off put by it, but I think generally speaking these days, especially, people are way more receptive to what I'm saying, because again, I'm not trying to tell you what to believe. I'm trying to warn people what not to buy into, because there's some very nefarious shit happening in this world, and we need to be aware of it. We need to identify it, and we need to make sure that we don't walk down those roads, because they are dark ones that you can't come back from.
But you are incredible. You're intelligent. Your music skill is just amazing. I've enjoyed chatting with you so much. I know it's been a long one, so thank you. I will see you at the show. I don't want to get too excited, but I know it's going to be good.
It's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, it's going to be
I can't
great.
wait. I'm so happy to be back. I'll see you at the Weatherspoons before the show.
Yes.
Come on down and
come on. We'll go for a pint.
Smash a pint, and then we'll do the thing.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Obviously, if you get anybody who's watching, even if you're not in Newcastle, check out the date list. There's a date for everybody. Go see them. I will report back afterwards and tell you about the live, but I am confident in this one. Thank you so much for your time, Dusty. You are an absolute joy to speak with. I have had such a laugh.
Likewise. Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yes, we will. So before I say goodbye, is there anything you want to say to anyone who's listening or watching?
Don't lose hope, because that's what they want you to do. They being the powers that be. But seriously, take care of each other. Pet a cat, listen to some good music, play some Warhammer.
Yes.
And, don't sweat the small stuff, because keep your joy. You got to keep your joy. Don't let people steal your joy. There's not enough of it these days, and it's a precious thing, and we got to find it where we can. And just try to be a good person. I don't know.
Yes.
That's all I got.
That's better advice than mine. Mine is this: behave, be good. If you can't be good, don't get caught. All right.
Goth mom. That's a true goth mom.
Over and out. Gigs up north.